Good afternoon, Year 6, and welcome to Monday the 25th of January's curriculum lesson, all on inheritance and variation. Okay, so for today you should have some cards that look like that. You need those. Oh, computer's messing about. And then you should have an A3 sheet that looks either like this one, got lots of Mr. Men on, or like this one at the bottom. And then you should have one of these as well. This is a little extra activity that I'll explain later, but make sure you've got all of those sheets for today's lesson. Right, so key words then for today are the word inheritance, inherited traits, inherited characteristics, variation, offspring or progeny, and DNA, and I'll explain what each of these means, but we should already know what they mean from our first lesson clarifying all that vocabulary. So the theory of evolution then, and it does tie in to inheritance, so I'll explain why. So this theory describes changes that happen in the same species living in the same location over a long time. We're not talking about a couple of weeks, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions, hundreds of millions of years. And it does not describe people or animals changing their bodies by exercise or by dyeing their hair. No, that's something called an acquired characteristic, so it's something that is physically changed by something else. Evolution happens over a long time and can only happen between parents and offspring through inheritance. So obviously, you know that two parents are needed, and when they have babies, that is called offspring, okay, or progeny sometimes. And inheritance is what we are going to look at today. So, what is inheritance? Now, certain characteristics are passed down from a parent to their offspring. So, an easy way to think about this is eye colour. So, the colour of your eyes is inherited from your parents. Your hair is inherited from your parents. If you've got, let's say for example, my hair, well, my dad has black wavy hair and my mum has brown straight hair. So my hair is brown and wavy. So I've got the wavy hair from my dad and the brown hair from my mum. Okay, and these are called characteristics. They can be physical, it can also be like eye colour, it can be your body type, so whether you grow to be tall, whether you grow to be short, whether you're wide, whether you're skinny, all of these are passed down from your parents, and it's the same in nature as well. Half of our DNA comes from our mum and half of our DNA comes from our dad, and these are our parents. So first off, let's have a look at DNA and how does it affect what we look like. So this is very advanced, so we don't need to know these in detail, but it helps to know where they are. So the body is made up of things called cells. Okay, now all living things are made up of cells. These are the building blocks, okay? All living things are made up of them, and amoebas have only one cell. So their body is the same size as one cell, and us, for example, we have trillions of cells, and to see these you need a very good microscope. So then inside these cells we have something called a nucleus. Now the nucleus can be considered the brain of the cell. Okay, now that sounds a little bit odd, but it's where all the main things happened in each cell. So each cell has a nucleus, and inside that nucleus, as you can see there, are chromosomes. Now these chromosomes, for us, we've got 23 pairs, so 46. So 22 pairs have genetic DNA on them. Well, we're made of DNA and contain our genes. And the final pair is an XX or an XY. So the XX, if you have but two X genes, it means you're female. And if you have an X and a Y, it means that you're male. So this last pair decide whether you are a boy or a girl. So each chromosome is made up of DNA, and you can unravel this, and this is what DNA looks like very closely under a microscope. And DNA carries the characteristics that we inherit. So it is located in two places in the cell, the nucleus and the mitochondria. So DNA can make copies of itself, and this is called replication. And when cells divide, so cells make copies of themselves, they need to have an exact copy of the DNA in each cell. So the DNA is very good at replicating. So genes, right, not genes that you wear, these are short sections of DNA that contain specific information. And this is called the genetic code. So all the genes in the whole of the cell are called the genome. And these are what genes look like. So DNA is made up of 4 bases, A, T, C, or G. Off the top of my head, I can't remember them. I think it's adenosine, tyrosine, cytosine, and guanine. But that is very advanced. That's like A-level science biology for you right there. So these genes are the characteristics, like the wavy hair, the brown hair that I was talking about earlier, the blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes, grey eyes. All these genes provide this information and determine what your body looks like. So inheritance then, when we talk about inheritance, this often means that things are passed to one of us when like a relative dies. So for example, when my granddad died, he left me a painting of an aeroplane that I used to enjoy when I was a child. Sometimes, I think my nan died, she gave me quite a lot of money, lucky me. But we're talking about something different. We're not talking about that kind of inheritance. In science, inheritance refers to the genes that are passed from parents to offspring. And inherited characteristics are things like, skin colour, eye colour, that we are talking about, and they're physical characteristics that are easy to spot. But they can also include abilities such as taste and smell. One very interesting thing I was reading a long while ago is about how we perceive colour, and that some people that are incredibly good at art have inherited characteristics that make their eyes see colours in different ways, which means that they're more likely to paint better than somebody without these characteristics. Now, it's important to realise at this part that some things such as glasses, scars and muscles we get from the environment. So these are environmental or acquired traits, not inherited traits. And when I say muscles, I mean like if you go to the gym and you work out, you are improving your muscles. So that's what I mean there, that's environmental. Right, so a little task for you here, quick little task for you to pause the video. So which parent matches with which offspring? Should be fairly easy. So pause the video, which ones did you match? And while you're doing that, have a think about why you chose the way that you did. Right, so we should have done that fairly quickly. So we know that A and C go together. Now, A and C are both owls, aren't they? They're both birds. And if I'm looking at them critically, we've got the same shape face. So that is very much an inherited trait. You've got the same beak there, same sort of eye colour that you can see. Obviously, this one's a little bit bigger. Then we should know that B and E go together. And now, obviously, the main difference here is that E, the lion there, that's a male lion, and that has a very big mane. B, I'm not sure what gender of lion that is, whether it's male or female, could be one or the other, but the similarities are quite striking. For me, it's always the nose on a lion. You can tell lions similar because they've got the same kind of nose there, facial structure as well. And last but not least, D and F go together. Just make this a little bit smaller. Yeah, D and F 100% go together to seal cub and an adult seal there, and you can see that the tail is tail and fins, not fangs, fins similar. Well, they're identical. So if these were parents and offspring, like you could tell that the genes in this seal pup are inherited from this seal adult here, either its mum or its dad, in terms of body shape as well as many other things. Okay, so a misconception quite often. When you're while offspring does mean a child, it does not mean that you are offspring. I'm offspring and I'm in my 30s. Okay? So when you're children, it doesn't mean that you're only offspring there. Everybody is offspring, no matter how old they are. Okay? So, right, first things first then, what I'd like you to do is to, on your sheet, where it says what does inheritance mean, I just want you to write your version of what you think inheritance means. So here's some keywords down the side. You've got DNA, genes, characteristics, mum, dad, parents and offspring. So just write what you think inheritance means in that box and pause the video while you do that. Okay, right, so we should have done that by now. Let's just see what time we're on. 10 minutes, best get a move on. Right, so now we've got quite a fun little activity. So you'll have noticed on your sheet that you've got some Mr. Men, and we're going to have a real look at inheritance now. So we've got the Mr. Men here. We've got Mr. Uppity, Mr. Nosy, Mr. Greedy, Mr. Small, Mr. Strong, and Mr. Sneeze. And you've got Little Miss. So Little Miss Tiny, Little Miss Sunshine, Little Miss Sporty, Little Miss Chatterbox, Little Miss Stubborn, and Little Miss Busy. And then you have their offspring. So these don't have names. I didn't name them. So you've got all of the different offspring here. So the parents are either going to be the parents are a Mr. Man and a Little Miss. And to find out what parents, well, we need to look at the characteristics of both the Mr. Men and the Little Miss. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. So here we go. You're going to do this on your proud folder sheets in a minute. And basically, this is what I would like you to do. So you need to figure out for each one whose parents they are. So let's take this little guy here. Well, looking at the Mr. Men, we're looking for colour and we're looking for shape. So you can see here, I think this is Mr. Sneeze, his son or daughter. So, and now we found his dad. Who's his mum going to be? So we know that he's got his dad's body shape. And then looking here, Little Miss Sporty is the same colour and has the same hair colour as this guy here. So I'm going to put Little Miss Sporty. Oh, make sure I put it in the right place. Little Miss Sporty. Now, why do I think that? So if I'm looking at Mum's characteristics, well, Mum's characteristics are, Mum has light blue skin, I think we'll call that, light blue skin and blonde hair. Dad's characteristics, Dad has long legs and a spiky body shape. Okay, let's actually spell shape properly, include the vowel there. So there, in that, for each one, you just need to tell me exactly the same thing. Okay, so for the next one, you'd have a look at the body type, the skin colour, and the hair colour. Okay, now some of you have got that one. Some of you have got this one where it says variation. So you would do exactly the same thing as we did before. You'd write this guy's parents down. And there. And where it says variation, it just means differences. Okay, so for this one, you would basically write the same thing but write it as a sentence. So I would start off with the offspring has light blue skin and blonde hair with a spiky body type. I'm just going to change that. Because I've spelled offspring right. The offspring has light blue skin and blonde hair, which has been inherited from his mum, and a spiky body type with tall legs that has been inherited from his dad. So it's the same thing that we wrote before, but we're just writing it as a sentence. So if I were you, I'd start each one of them. The offspring has is your sentence starter. Okay, so pause the video and have a look at, pause the video, have a look at each one, and then we'll go through them very quickly. Okay, so you should have now finished the rest of those on your sheet. Obviously, we've done the first one, so having a look at the next one, well, oh gosh, I had a right mess of that, haven't I? So this one here, now I think this particular offspring here is Little Miss Chatterbox, because she's got the same body type and the same blonde hair. I think it's Mr. Uppity is the pair, is the dad as well, it's the same colour skin. So for this one, well, I'm looking for this this skin colour. I think his dad is Mr. Greedy. He's got the same smile as well that Mr. Greedy has got. And I think his mum is Little Miss Stubborn. Same body shape, same hands and same feet. Now, have a look at this one. Now, this one is quite interesting, isn't it, really? I think this one is Mr. Small son. I think he's the dad. I think the mum is Little Miss Tiny because of her skin colour. It's the same skin colour there, and he's got the same body type as Mr. Small. Now, do you notice that with this particular offspring, he's even smaller than Little Miss Tiny and Mr. Small? So there's some genetic information going on in there, some of his genes making him incredibly tiny. This one, right, having a look at this body type, I think her dad here is Mr. Nosy. Same kind of body type, same long nose. And I think her mum, ooh, right. Now, I was going to say Little Miss Sunshine there, but I'm not, because they're the same skin colour, but actually, look at the hair. Mr. Nosy doesn't have any hair. Little Miss Sunshine doesn't. It's not the same. In fact, I think this is Little Miss Busy's daughter. Okay, but she's inherited... She hasn't inherited her mum's eyesight because her mum needs glasses. She's got her dad's eyes, but she's got her mum's hair and her mum's skin colour. Oh, sorry, got one last one to do. And this last one, oh, right. So I think this is Mr. Strong's daughter. Same body type as Mr. Strong, same square look. And then I think this is Little Miss Sunshine's daughter as well. Same hair and the same face. Okay, well done if you got those right. So, one of the things I wanted to go through very, very quickly, and this is about eye colour inheritance. And you can read this part here. This is just a little bit of science that I would have gone through in the class. But this is how eye colour is determined. So, if you've got blue eyes, it means you've got something called a recessive gene. If you've got brown eyes, it means that you have a dominant gene. So dominant means that it's always going to be seen. So if you have a dominant gene, you'll always see it. Now, genes come in pairs. So for this here, you've got a big B, which stands for brown, and a small b, which stands for blue. So that means that this person has brown eyes because they've got a dominant gene. A person with blue eyes has two recessive blue genes. Okay? Now, when that is passed on to their offspring, you'll get one of these genes from, let's say this is the mum and let's say this is the dad. You only get one letter from your mum and one letter from your dad, if you like. And they combine to give you variation. So they combine in a different way to your mum or your dad. That's why you're similar to your mum and dad, but not exactly the same. It's the same with your siblings as well. You'll share similarities to your siblings. In fact, you are 50% identical to your siblings. But those genes are inherited from your mum and dad, but they've combined in a different way. And this is called variation, what we're going to look at next. So as you can see here, if you're combining the brown with the dominant gene with the recessive, these children would have brown eyes. If you combine in the two recessive genes, these children will have blue eyes. So there's a 50-50 chance of passing on brown or blue eyes there. So, inheritance and variation. So, inherited characteristics are similarities between parents and offspring, and that results in differences. Okay, and that's called variation. So the majority of living things are the result of reproduction, so they have two parents, and you inherit characteristics from both parents, but the way they combine makes the offspring unique, so always be different. The inherited characteristics can combine in different ways, which is the reasons why siblings inherit the characteristics. Siblings inherit the same characteristics, but they are not identical. Even identical twins so that share the exact same combination of DNA, are not 100% the same. And this is due to the fact that genes developed separately when they're twins, or when the twins are embryos, or during later development. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do, one last task, is to pause the video and answer this. How does inheritance cause variation? So you might have to rewind. Well, I'll leave it on there. So I would start this with: inheritance causes variation because, and then you need to include some of these words: parents, genes, characteristics, and combine. I'll leave this up for you to help you write that. So pause the video and write that very quickly. Okay, now on to our last task. So we often talk about inheriting characteristics from our parents. So some things we do inherit, but some things are acquired. Okay, so using the cards that we showed you earlier, what I'd like you to do is stick them on your sheet for me into the columns of inherited characteristics and acquired characteristics. So something that's inherited is something that you get from your parents. Something that's acquired is something that is learned. For example, reading is an acquired characteristic. Okay, this one, freckles, will be something that you get from your parents. So pause the video and sort these cards into the right order, and then we'll go through them together. Right, okay then. So another inherited characteristic is definitely tongue rolling. Playing a musical instrument is something that's learned, so that's acquired, as is riding a bike. A cleft chin is not something that's learned, that's something you get from your mum or dad. Dimples is also something you get from your mum and dad as well. Now, reading. This is, I think that says reading. Drawing, sorry. That is something that you have learned. Swimming is also something that you've learned. Eye colour is something that you get from your mum and dad, so it's inherited. Can't see what that one said. Singing is something that you learn as well. And hair colour is something that is inherited. Okay, so that's how they should look. And that is today's lesson over. Now, you will recall me saying that you've got a sheet left over. So this is just something a little bit extra that you want to do, that you can do if you like to. You don't have to do this. But it's always interesting to see. So what I'd like you to do is investigate the characteristics that you've inherited from your mum and dad. Okay, and then write a short paragraph explaining the characteristics that you've inherited. Okay, you could compare yourself to your siblings if you're fancying a challenge and say how your characteristics are similar and different. So here you've got it here. All you need to do is find out the eye colour, hair type from your dad, and anything else that your dad's got that you might have, and the same for your mum, and then compare them to what you have got. Okay, thank you, Year 6, and see you next week.